Ready Pop. Music changing lives.
Hello. Welcome to another Music Changing Lives podcast. This is post our conversation because I foolishly did not introduce the guests. So we're talking about XOX on this one, and I am joined by Abbie Hill.
Hello.
And Gavin Lombos.
Hello.
So yeah, now I'm going to cut to past us where we have a very nice conversation. So yeah.
You didn't introduce yourself.
Oh yeah, and I'm Harrison Screen. So this is going to be less of an interview and more of a conversation. So I'm going to throw it over to Gavin first. How did XOX first come about?
It birthed in lockdown in that, like many people who are synth nerds like myself, during lockdown started to make music again. And I like making music with vintage technology as much as recording on Logic. And I like drum machines, and I wanted to play on an 808 because I've not played with a TR-808 since the 80s. And I thought, well, I can't afford one. So I thought I'll hire one. And in starting that bit of research, I discovered you can't hire one. You can't sort of hire one for a week and play with it. I found a 909 you could hire, and it was £1,500 a week to hire it, plus a £3,000 deposit. So
I understand why you brought it now.
Yeah, so you could buy one for £4,500, and I thought, I could buy one and then sell it after a week. I'd probably make money. And then that just started me down this kind of path of going, well, these things aren't accessible. And at the same time, during lockdown, we had videos online on our Ready Pop site, and the most popular one was how to make 808s at that point. And it was like, actually, the young people we work with want this thing that they think of as an 808 in their music, which isn't really an 808. And there's the birth of an education project in there that's how do we connect these things together, and actually, just being able to show the physical unit that's behind you there, the TR-808 in the flesh, because so many people have heard the sound of it, but very few people have actually seen one, let alone actually programmed one or made sound with it. And there's a process of working with the physical machine, the actual instrument, that is completely different from working with a plugin or samples or whatever, that leads you in a musical direction or a creative direction that's influenced by the machine, by the instrument, and your interaction with it, in the same way that if you pick up an acoustic guitar, you start to play acoustic guitar music. When you bash on an 808, you make 808 music, which happens to sound like, early hip-hop or electro or whatever, because that's what it created.
Well, I never really understood the hype of the 808. I didn't really understand why you spent so much money on it. And then we went to Oxford Brookes to do a workshop, and that bass drum going through a sub is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I sort of get it now. And now I can't listen to music without going, that's an 808.
You hear it everywhere now.
808.
Everywhere. I just recognize all of these synths, all of these sounds that I didn't know before. And I'm like, I know what that is. Yeah. Did you know that this is a...
Yeah. And it's how these things have become the foundation of not only dance music, but pretty much pop music. The sound of any kind of popular music is somehow influenced by a few of these boxes that we see around us here, and how people used and misused them. I suppose that was my kind of first question for you guys, really, is how has your relationship to these instruments sort of changed since you've started to actually use them and make music with them?
Abbie, you go first, because you've worked here longer than me, so your relationship is a bit
That's
longer
a
than mine.
cop-out.
No, I'll come, but...
I think I have a different appreciation for writing music in a different way, or not writing, but playing music in a different way. That's just being part of the XOX band.
Yeah.
I guess figuring music out in a more sort of almost satisfying way, because it is so steady and so perfect when you get it right.
Yeah.
There's no, I don't know. It's a different way than you would do music in a band or in a studio. It's just a new way of music that I didn't really know existed until starting this project. So
I was actually quite terrified of synths. I've always been fascinated by them, but I never wrapped my head around them as a guitarist. And then I sat with the 303 for about a month, and now I love the thing. And now it's like I want to play with everything, but that means tearing everything apart, because the way I'd use it is completely different to the way that we want the studio set up.
I've learnt more patience, definitely, because the idea of not having something like with Logic, how I need it when I need it, like I think it makes you a better musician to be able to want to take the time to really understand how to play something, which I think you kind of start out as a musician knowing, like learning how to do if you like learn your first instrument, because you're learning it. So it's, and then maybe you get a bit more greedy as it goes on with music. And I think this has taken me back to sort of feeling like an early musician again, like trying to figure something out.
Yeah. And I think that's really interesting, because I feel like my relationship with these boxes and instruments hasn't really changed. It's always that, because there's certain ones I feel comfortable with and I can reach to a sound. So the SH101, I'm familiar with that because that's a synth that I've used off and on for decades. So I kind of know if I go for that slider, that's going to affect the sound in this way, or if I want to make this kind of sound, I need to do this. But it doesn't have any presets, so whatever the sliders say, that's the sound. But over time, you learn to kind of read what those sliders mean and to know roughly what should be happening. So, yeah, it's like playing electric guitar and flipping between the pickups to get a different sound, or where you play a chord or whatever. It becomes part of that process. But there's also an element of unpredictability, and just sometimes you forget what a thing does.
I'd much rather play with these than play on Logic. I don't know about you. You're different because you're whiz on Logic, but I hate going through synthesis on Logic and pulling the mouse around and stuff like that.
I was going to say that I feel like I've actually spent more time doing that since we've done this, because I understand it more, because playing with the actual stuff and then, having that sort of ability to understand Logic, like putting those two together, I can understand. I know how to get to a synth sound I want on Logic a lot easier than I used to be able to.
I think I like the...
You like holding it,
I like
you?
the accident and the mistake in it. So like when I discovered that you could trigger the 505 and trigger it with the bass, or the 606, sorry. And knowing, I can get that sound, and that comes up with a pattern that I wouldn't think of on Logic. Yeah. It's just the hands-on playing around and going, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
And that leaves me Googling stuff like, can I get a modern version of this? Because that's what I like.
And those kind of happy accidents and actually exploring the sound on what the things do, because also each individual button and knob affects what another thing's doing. So, you move one thing on its own, but then if you change something somewhere else and you go back to it, now you do that thing and it's doing something different now. And I find I get lost in, you can kind of get lost in a loop, and you can get lost in a creative process, kind of going back to what you were saying about being in the band, that is about setting up just a groove and the way a bass line works with the drums, and then just tiny little tweaks on this and tiny little touches to that. You begin to see how all those classic dance tunes and synth pop tunes and stuff were created, because it's about capturing the moment where it's all kind of locked in and it sounds really good.
But it's even like I love drones in music, and it's so simple. Like I came down the other day and played with the Juno 6 because we just got the Juno 6, and I started by doing the arpeggio just to get the Stranger Things thing, as you do. And then it was like, what if I just hold a chord, and I just held that chord for like 5 minutes and just messed around with everything else around that chord, which is so simple to do because you just press one button and maybe another.
But I've seen how you getting involved with these synths has made you better on Logic as well. I thought it the other week because so I think you take time with your instruments a bit more, and your ideas also are relating a lot more to hip hop now as well.
Yeah.
And I think that's come by you surrounding yourself and like immersing yourself in this, like all of these and all of the music that comes with it.
Yeah, I think I always loved hip hop, but now I'm deconstructing hip hop.
Yeah.
I understand it a bit more.
It's more critical to you, like as a musician, I think.
What about you, Gavin? Since having all these synths, what's
changed?
What's it done to you?
Well, one is that I've gone down various rabbit holes of trying to make things work with each other in ways that I expected to be simple but turned out not to be. And it's been because the boxes haven't been working in the way that they should or that we expect them to. And that's a new thing, because like if you've got one drum machine at home because that's all you can afford, and you just work with the drum machine the way it is. But here with this, we're like, oh well, I want to make the 808 and the 908 and do this, and then this do that, and then I want that to happen with this, and then you kind of go, ooh, this one thing doesn't work, and then it stops the whole chain working. So yeah, it's getting into the quirks and foibles of vintage equipment not behaving in the way that you expect it to behave. So that's like a new thing for me is driving backwards and forwards with stuff in the boot of the car to get them repaired.
But you also know why it's not working. I feel like you're very quick now to be like, oh, it's not working because of this.
Yeah, so there's a troubleshooting exercise to go through to understand what the problem might be.
I think it's also handy that we've built a community of other synth people. So now, like earlier,
they know what it is.
we had another 909 come in, so we can go, oh, that's what's wrong with it. It's not that ours isn't behaving. It's just that it's broken.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's like, they don't all, because these units are, electrical rather than kind of digital computer. They don't all behave in exactly the same way. Not all 808s sound the same, because each one's got the bass drum, its own individual circuit, making that bass sound. So yes, some of them have quirks. Some of them, they're 40, 50 years old, and some of them have been looked after, and some of them have had a pint of beer spilt in them. So some of them behave weirdly. So it's sussing out that stuff. But it's also just finding, for me, because I've been around these sounds for so long, and I've been aware of how they've been used through music history, as it were. So, I just love getting the 909 and the 808 working together with a bass line, because that's how dance music was created from, the middle of the 80s through until late 90s. That's how the stuff was done. And there's certain sounds, certain key, just signature sounds that are just those two things working together. And it's just great to be able to recreate that in the studio. And it kind of makes you realize how important some of these things are to just the sound of music. It's the sound of these particular machines doing what they do well. I mean, yes, it's the people who program the beats on them and all those things, but it adds to be that particular machine doing it rather than the samples and recreations of it, and that's why people are still going back to them. And what do you think? What's your impression of the reaction of the people that we've introduced this stuff to you so far through the project? You know, how do young people react to it versus the sort of teenagers and versus the adults that we've introduced it so far?
I think if we are doing a workshop for music tech students, like college and stuff, they love it. They really love it. I think it's kind of a thing at the moment where a lot of new musicians want to understand this gear and like understand and incorporate it into their music. If it's little ones, they just like the flashy lights and buttons. And I think if it's music, they want to they would benefit more from the keys sounds. So they're not too bothered about the drum machines and the bass machines either, but they want to be able to play the piano and play with these settings.
So, saying that though, we've done workshops from really little ones to university students, and what these like drum machines and the bass machine really help with is the young people that struggle in class and they can't focus. Yeah, if you put a worksheet in front of them and go, "Oh, program this," it's like they're like, okay, because they're just lost in that machine.
Yeah, maybe the younger generation just have a bit more computer minds because of how the world is. So figuring it out is quite satisfying for them.
But I remember we went to one school and it got to the end of the session and the teacher was like, I can't believe this certain young person focused because they just couldn't focus on anything, but we couldn't get them off the machine.
And then when we're doing XOX band, I love watching people come into the room and watching them just not want to leave. Like they all smile. Everyone that comes in is just like, this sounds amazing. And it's kind of like what you were saying earlier. You don't realize it until you actually stop and listen to like everything that we've put together and go, this is working and this sounds great. And then someone else comes in and is dancing along to it. And you're like, wow, it's made everyone that comes into this room happy whenever we rehearse.
I do also love that these, not so much at the moment because we're waiting for the building to be done, but the few people that have come in, we've made these instruments available and we've been able to say to people, oh, you don't know how this works, but I can show you. I think that's quite nice as well.
Yeah, and we're not being precious about, you can't touch it because it's valuable or whatever. It's like, yeah, have a go, play with it.
And most people are like, I don't want to touch it.
Yeah.
They're the ones that, I don't want to touch it. Can I just hit the pad? And you're like, yeah, grab a drumstick.
Yeah, and I think I think the band project, performing live with it, I think that's been so far for me, that's been the most kind of fun in terms of just playing. But also kind of the most informative, really, of kind of going, well, yeah, just to be able to switch between, playing one kind of piece of music to another or one style into the next, and just the small changes that we need to make to the instruments at each stage to move between what things sounded like effectively in 1980 versus what they sound like in 1983. And it's just, I've really enjoyed that.
And still being able to make it our own as well.
Yeah.
Like it's still, in a way, an updated version because it's like a new musical interpretation of it with the old gear.
I enjoy it as well because it's just a laugh. I've never had like a band jam where I haven't been frustrated with one member. Because usually it's like, oh, the rhythm section's out or that guitar's slightly out of tune. Like,
but once you
like,
two are
get
working
these
together, everything else is just, and that's the main thing. Once you two, like your instruments are together, everything else is sort of just able to try things out a bit more without this part going wrong.
Yeah, and if something does go wrong, you just got to press one button to fix it, or it's just like, oh no, we've just got to start again.
And you're like, I came in at the wrong time.
Yeah. And ironically, we're actually in that context, we are using the instruments for the purpose that they were created. So whilst 808s lived in the studio and they became the studio staple, it was intended to be used live.
Yeah.
That's why it's got buttons for fills and things. And it's the same with the bass line was intended for playing bass lines live. So you could play guitar on top or sing on top or whatever. So it's it's really good to be using it in that context. And because this is a heritage project and we're doing this effectively, authentically around the design of the instruments from that period, there are limits to what we can do, and we have to work within those limits. And for me, that makes it interesting. I see those as creative challenges rather than, and it also, it does occasionally go, well, we can go so far with this, but then we have to stop. There are things that we can't do unless we cheat. And basically by bringing in something from 20 years later, and then that becomes a choice to go, well, do we need to cheat in order to do this, or do we, because we're playing a piece of music that was created in the studio, so they had access to it, they could do things because they were the 5 seconds in the sampler, you could record those 5 seconds and then you could put a new 5 seconds in and record that over the top. Whereas live, we've got 5 seconds. So yeah, I enjoy that process. And I think that's where the real learning is for us, is to go, well, that is the limit of what we can do. So we have to work up to that point and, discover what are all the creative possibilities that take us up to that point where we run out of notes, or we run out of time, or we run out of leads that will connect things together.
Saying that though, what has been the biggest headache you found so far with XOX? It could be something very personal or something creative, or
I've already got mine.
I mean, playing with the 909, that's been the headache, in that we discovered that our 909 was a very early version, so the MIDI didn't quite work. And then in the process of trying to make it work, we haven't still got to a point where it works. So, but it works in an authentic 1980s studio environment way. If we were going to sync it up to our other gear and record to tape, it would be fine. But trying to anticipate the needs of people coming in to use it alongside Logic or whatever, we can't make it do that yet. So there's an ongoing head scratch there. I suppose the other thing is just I haven't got around to using everything yet. We've got all of this stuff, and there's still things I haven't properly even turned on and used, never mind spent some time with and really explored, like the Akai sampler down there. So, there are things that I'm still waiting to spend time with. And I think what we've done with the basic studio that we have here to work with musicians, it's really exciting and really fun, and I'm really looking forward to this weekend and working with a bunch of people. But there are other versions of this that we haven't explored yet. There's a hip hop studio in here that we haven't set up yet, with the SP12 and the Oberheim drum machine, and so there are different configurations. And then also when it comes to the band, there's at the moment we're doing a kind of 80s version of it, but there's a late 80s, 90s dance music, acid house band version to explore there as well.
I think it's slowly getting to a more permanent state, but beforehand we've had to move stuff around a lot. I think once it's out and available, then we can mess around with stuff.
That was my headache.
Is that your headache?
Moving everything to different places, resetting it up,
Yeah, we've
setting
had
it up
about
again,
5 different setups.
thinking this is going to be set up like this, and then no, changing it again. And we said the other day, didn't we, that XOX has been set up in every single room.
Yeah,
at
and
one point
we built this
since we've had
desk.
it.
We built this desk probably a year and a half ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah,
But it's looking good.
yeah. Now I think this is the happiest I've been with it, and when the building gets knocked down, I'll be like mad but happy at the same time.
I thought you were going to say cables or power supplies.
Yeah, that kind of the same thing. Like just needing more power and having to find the right
But
cables.
I think each time we've had to take it down and then rebuild it, it's improved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
I understand it more as well.
So there's I can definitely see there's a vision of the permanent studio in my mind,
And it's better
which is
to
broadly based on what we've got here. With a longer bench and a bigger rack of keyboards but broadly speaking, what we've got here with the functionality that we've got here, and then the options for how we break out and use the other stuff.
Yeah. And it is better for us to have been putting it together, taking it apart, instead of just talking about all the different ways and then trying one and not being happy with it.
Yeah.
Like, so beneficial for us as well to understand all the different configurations that are in your head that we can actually make happen, see if it works, and then do it again.
I think mine is working backwards because I got my hands on the boutiques first. And it's like, well, that works.
Yeah.
And then you move on to the vintage stuff.
That's
and
easy peasy.
It sounds better, but there's a like niggle to it. So it's like
dodgy buttons.
Like the Juno, that was a pain to figure out how to synthesize or arpeggiate on the boutique.
Yeah.
But then you go to this and there's like a dodgy button. But now it's fixed. It's
Yeah.
great. But like the 303 sounds amazing. But I still kind of prefer the boutique because I can see how many numbers I'm on at the moment.
But that's because also you started on the boutique and now you've moved on to this.
Yeah, that's what I
mean. And everybody
yeah.
else has started on that and moved on to the boutique.
Yeah.
And then they go, I don't like the boutique as much.
Yeah.
But you're like, but it was my first
But
one.
I was saying earlier, it's like, because it's made of metal, I can smash it a little bit without thinking, oh, it's going to break. But with that,
I can't wait for your next set. You're like, finish the performance.
Yeah. And it's that thing wasn't, it was intended to sling it in a bag and take to gigs and be your little, bass player buddy in your bag. And now it's become this sought after, rare instrument that, you have to look after with buttons that if you get gunk in them, they'll stop working.
You also have to be careful with having fat fingers on it as well because it just likes to double tap things.
Yeah.
Sounds great. And also it can break if you move it from one place to another. So
Saying that though, this is clearly my favourite synth. What would you say your favourite synth is?
the vocoder.
The vocoder.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you have loads of fun with it.
It's not even just the vocoder. No, but the Juno as well, because it's what I had the most knowledge about before even starting this project.
It's
just
in
the
everything
sounds
modern at the moment as well.
Yeah,
isn't it?
I was more familiar with it than any other synth. So
Is yours the 808 still?
Yes. But
however,
actually no. It's the 101 is my favourite of all of them because it does so many things, including making 808 bass drum sounds and stuff like that. It's just you spend time with it. There's so much. I mean, it can only ever do one thing at a time. So if you wanted to make a drum machine, you'd need 8 of them or whatever. But it's just, it's just the one thing that is. Yeah, I just still enjoy it. You just find sounds and it's just a fun synth and it's not too complicated. So
once you know what the sliders and that do, because I've had a lot of head scratching going, why can't I make this sound like anything?
Yeah. And you begin to, there's a point where you'll begin to spot the things that immediately why it's not making a noise, why there's either no noise coming out of it or it's just going, like, how do I why? And you go, oh, I've turned that up. It's because I've got the noise turned all the way up and everything else turned down, or whatever. So once you begin to spot those, or you don't panic, you kind of go, oh, I know how to subtly get out of this horrible noise situation to sound like I meant to do it. And it sort of brought me back to the 202, which is like a baby 101. And I'm enjoying kind of learning how to make that be musically useful.
Not many people know how to make that one musically useful, do they? It's tricky.
Ignore the sequencer.
Yeah.
Just do what we do and plug the 303 into it. Or
Yeah.
Yeah, it's there's a couple of things where you want to basically ignore some of its fundamental functionality, and there's other aspects of it. The actual sound of it is great. It's just not very playable in its sort of fresh out of the box.
In my research for the booklet I'm making, I found out that Josh Frusciante from the Red Hot Chili Peppers has 6 of these in his studio. And he sets one up like each string of the guitar.
No.
Which is unbelievable, really, isn't it?
That's mental.
Yeah. So he comes up with guitar compositions with each one being like the E string or the A string. Or...
That's mad. Wow.
Yeah.
What an idea.
Yeah. So we need to get 5 more.
And that'll be because up until quite recently, they were really affordable because very few people were interested in them. And they've become a kind of they've become part of the kind of the vintage collectors, bag of stuff. But they were always, they're the kind of, that also ran. So you can still pick them up cheap. So, you wouldn't be able to do, you could do it with 5 or 6 SH101s, but it would cost you, a few years ago, that would have cost you sort of $5,000 to do, whereas you could have done it for maybe $2,000 with 202s.
Saying that, if you didn't work here and you booked time in the studio, what would you use the studio for?
I would use it to get samples from the machines so then I could take it away.
That was my answer.
Stole it. Yeah.
I'd use it, and I intend to use it, more to create grooves. So, get in patterns that are working on the 808-909 and a couple of the other synths, nice bass line or arpeggios and kind of just solid, and then record sections of those, and then I'd then edit those together. So rather than trying to program a whole song in the 1980s style, it might be that I've got like a verse pattern and a chorus pattern or whatever, and I'd record those and then take those away and edit them later on. And then I'm quite interested in doing just some more textural stuff with the synths, because there are sounds that you can get and ways in which the layers and stuff interact, recording 2-3 synths together, that you just don't get with software emulations. They just don't quite do it. And going through the Space Echo, that's another one that I just want to spend some time with. I haven't spent some time with that, and the other Space Echo that we have, because that's where we can create just unique sounds.
Yeah.
They're one-off because it's just created in that moment with the way in which the synth or whatever is interacting with the tape delay.
I think I'd combine the 2 of your answers. I think I'd bring my pedal board in and just sample through like distortions.
Doesn't surprise me.
Massive reverbs and tremolo.
Yeah.
See some weird sounds that come out.
Yeah. And record it all.
Each, and then I'd have a whole pack that I could go away with.
But just taking those, what you were talking about with held chords and arpeggios from the Juno 106 through 2-3 nice guitar pedals, you just can create these huge, amazing sounds. And you kind of take that away and
That sounds
edit
quite
it.
cool. Can I do that with you as
Yeah,
well?
yeah, you
After
can come in.
once I got my samples, can I rebook and come in with you
I
and do
have been
that?
eyeing up some stereo guitar pedals so that it sounds lush.
We need our own weekend for just us.
Yeah, we can have our own weekend if you want.
Yeah.
So we've got 303 weekend coming up.
Mm-hmm.
So this is why this is all set up. We've got a few people coming in to test the gear. What are you looking forward to with XOX as a project? I for one, yeah.
I'm looking forward to. So the other day we had, as you say, a couple of people stick their head in the door, and their eyes light up, and they're like, and one of them had to immediately call his mate and show him all the gear.
That was a long FaceTime conversation.
So there is that, and I think certainly musicians of a certain age have a kind of when I say a certain age, I mean my age, have memories and associations of a lot of this stuff from seeing it on TV and not being able to ever afford it, and you'd see these instruments on Top of the Pops, or you'd see them on, the Kids from Fame and things like that in the 80s, and it would be like, oh, look at that, there's a studio with one of these things in it, and it would be a thing that you'd aspire to play on one day. So those kind of feelings are still there for those kind of older musicians. And then, there are the people who are excited because it's a particular sound or a particular quality that they want to add into their music that they know or they expect that comes from the magic in some of these machines. So I'm kind of looking forward to those moments where people just want to crank it up and listen to the bass drum on the 808 and go, okay, that's all. I just needed to hear that.
Abbie?
I'm excited to have the final version of what the exhibition's going to be, or kind of final version, or the first version of the final version. To have everything where we can have it from scratch and really think about what we want it to look like, and really think about even down to where we want all the cables to be and how we want them to be labeled, and just having it for us so we know it like the back of our hand, and then to be able to welcome other people to come and come in the space, and us actually know oh, we can help you with this, we can help you with that. What about you?
I think I'm similar. Just having everything, understanding everything, and how once the 99 is synced up with Logic or whatever, just being able to have people come in and go, here you go, add that to your track, or build a track from that.
Yeah, or not a problem, we can do this
yeah,
for you.
Yeah, and just knowing our complete way around it and having a space where we're able to do that.
Yeah, there's certain things that are quite satisfying, like the patch bay here.
Yeah.
Just knowing, yes, we can plug that in, and it comes up there, and then
Yeah.
we can send it there, and
there's been multiple times I'm really into Todd Turge, and I could get a sound out of one of the synths, but it's until now basically it's been I've got to get that out, and then I've got to get a laptop to set it up. But once it's plugged in, I'm looking forward to it just being plugged in, get things going, really.
Yeah, I think once
606 and the 101, that's what you need.
Yeah, that is what I need.
Once we started doing the rehearsals and had sort of a semi-permanent space, that's when it sort of became a bit easier. So to have that properly together will be awesome.
Yeah, and once all the power cables are to the right machine and stuff like that.
And a cable wall.
Yeah. And I think, obviously we did the band and performed that just before Christmas. That one was a bit of more of a experiment to see if it would work, rather than an actual let's take this to the public performance. So I'm looking forward to doing that, and seeing how an audience that is choosing to be there because they're interested in what we're doing react to that, and then the questions that come from it, and how people want to interact with it and whether people want to come and have a go and see how it works, and to see the different types of audience that's going to be interested in it. I think that's I think I'm looking forward to that. I don't know whether we're in the process of creating our own sort of Frankenstein's monster with this project, that we've then just giving ourselves a problem to have to carry a load of gear around. So
we've downsized a little
We're
bit.
downsizing.
We're
Yeah,
good. We've
yeah.
got it in our heads.
yeah, we need, if we can keep it manageable, or we just don't do it that often because it's
Pain.
Yeah.
too complicated.
We've done looking forward now. What's your favourite thing from XOX so far?
I mean, I've really enjoyed the process of finding the equipment, and then, because it's been traveling around the country, meeting people, for them to then hand over their synth or their drum machine. And invariably, you then have a conversation with them about, I'm really sad to see this go and I'm going to miss it. And, I get to say, well, it's going to be in a place where you can come and play on it if you want to in the future. It's not, you can still come and see it, and other people are going to get to use it. And then, they've got some stories about what they did. And I think, I've been looking forward to inviting some of those people back down to come and play. And it's just, it's been a really eye-opening experience in terms of creating a studio based around, the kind of historic vintage technology, to kind of have to relearn stuff and and how, we're becoming, in doing that, we're becoming a knowledge base. And I think that's something I hadn't quite anticipated, that as we go forward, we're going to be the people that, people are going to be calling on to go, well, how do I make that work? And what happens if this breaks? And so I think that's a resource that will end up being, through our website and social media or whatever, of kind of going, oh, we've discovered this, or have you tried doing this? So I'm looking forward to that as an ongoing part of what we're doing. But I think performing live with the stuff has been the most sort of satisfying, and performing in a group and as a team, as learning this stuff, but at the same time, playing and being musically creative with it, whilst at the same time doing something that shares, knowledge and history with people. It's really interesting, fun project, actually.
I enjoyed performing at Christmas. That was just because it was something I never thought I would do. Like, performing in a synth band wasn't on my to-do list, but I really enjoyed it. And then the rehearsals, I think even like after Christmas, sort of doing that first performance and knowing, all right, I know my gear, like I understand it to the extent to be able to play it live. And then from then, I think all of our rehearsals since has been a lot of fun, like, because there's been for the two of us, I don't know about you, but like there's been more room for us to be creative, because we know like at the start we were just like trying to figure out what the songs were, how to use the stuff. And now like you're always saying like, oh, wouldn't that sound really cool? Or Abbie, if you play that like there, or, it's given us a bit more room to be involved in that stuff too, which has been a lot of fun.
I think I'm going to do a cop out because I've got a couple. But
I love it all.
No, one is learning the things, like finally having my head and getting around it, and doing the booklets really helped. And I have really enjoyed getting an art style behind these, and like I've drawn the images, and I've given colours to each synth.
You've put a brand
like
to the XOX.
Like building XOX, where it's just here's a load of synths, to suddenly there's something a bit more cohesive. But also like the masterclasses we've done. So we've done a couple masterclasses now, but I think so. We did the SB12 one most recently. That was nice because I met up with Tony again, who was my lecturer at uni, so that was nice. But also, like, mainly 909. I think 909 was really good because we were able to combine education with performance. So with 909, we did sort of like the meetups that we do, and we had simps out that people could play with, and then in the evening we went to Pepper Turtle and just let Saytech and a few other artists jam.
Yeah, I guess it was really nice having people come up to us and ask us how to use the stuff. And like me being surprised that I could actually give them an answer. Like these people who love synths and, you know, love it all. And so do I now. But like just being like, oh yeah, well, did you know that this was there and you can do this with this? And it's like, I didn't know I would ever know how to do it.
Yeah. And that 909 event, we had people that were really into synths. We had a couple lads that had left a festival to just
come and play with
just
some
come
synths.
and play with synths. And then we had a couple young people there that had started their musical journey that just came to be educated. So I think it was just a nice day overall, really.
Yeah, and everyone was like talking to each other, like.
And it's really sunny. It was like
It was
perfect.
the best day
Might
ever.
be looking for a bit rose tinted glasses now, but it was.
But also, going back to 303 last year, that the pieces that Saytech worked on with R303 and then performed live have now been released as tracks that hundreds of thousands of people have watched the performance through social media. It's reached all around the world, and I didn't really expect any of that to be happening. And there's other So we're planning to collaborate, and Saytech come in and make a recording here, and have other artists coming in and just make new recordings, but using this sort of this heritage studio or these instruments in a way that just gives them a particular vibe and a particular flavor. Whether it's Roger Robinson coming in to make some dub poetry, which is going to be using the space echoes in a way that they're classically known for, but also alongside the other stuff. And I think potentially then the reach of what we're doing just is huge. It goes
Also
lots of different places.
bringing it really down as well. Like we gave Saytech the opportunity to use a 303 for the first time, or the 909 sounds that he's used his whole life, but hasn't actually used the machine.
Yeah.
Being able to go, there you go, we trust you, go play with it.
Yeah.
Have fun.
Yeah, it's nice. A guy who's actually got 303 and 909 tattooed on his arms.
Yeah, exactly.
To make his dreams come true.
Yeah.
Got any other questions, either of you?
No, I think it's not over yet. The project is continuing, and I think in terms of our journey with what we've done with the support of the Heritage Lottery funding and getting us to where we are, it's not been exactly what we planned, but we've delivered so much of what we expected to do, and more in different ways, and we've learned so much out of it that we're already sharing with people and going to continue to share with people. The key thing that we'd hoped was that our new building would be ready, but it isn't. But I think that time means that when it is, we'll actually be ready and the project will be ready to properly use the space. We've needed that extra time to really learn and get to know what we're doing with this. Whereas I think we could have done this more quickly, but it would be less meaningful and relevant to the various groups of people in the community that we're engaging with. So I think that time has been really beneficial to this.
I think that would have meant we rushed it as well, and we wouldn't have gained.
We would have been playing catch up with ourselves.
Yeah.
To like you said, like understand what the project is.
Yeah.
Well, we kind of had it, and we're like, oh, actually, we wouldn't have done this if we had now we have the time.
There's being thrown in the deep end, but I don't think you can be thrown in the deep end with this sort of stuff. You need to get your head around it and have the time to play with each thing.
Yeah.
And things like doing the live performance side of it came quite late in the day to the project, and actually it's been one of the most beneficial things to do in terms of our own understanding of what we're doing and communicating that to an audience, because we're starting at a point where people are going, oh, that's cool. I really like that. I don't even know what's going on. And then they want to engage with it. Yeah. So yeah, I think, it's in a really good place. And it's, how we sustain that and we keep that going into the future. But yeah, it's good.
I think that's a good wrap up of this podcast.
Yes, I agree.
That was a nice chat. Thanks, guys. That was lovely. And thanks for listening. Look forward to having another chat like this in future. I think we should do this more regularly.
Me too.
But thanks for listening to another Music Changing Lives podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.